Now let's move on to question 2. So in question 2 we have this one. Each day Ella loaded her truck with red shirts and blue shirts for delivery to 2 stores. At store 1 she dropped off some shirts, and at store 2 she dropped off all the remaining shirts. Okay, so we have 2 stores and 2 types of shirts, red and blue. Okay, so the first question A tells us that on Monday she loaded 800 shirts and 200 blue shirts, 800 red shirts and 200 blue shirts. Okay, at store 1 she dropped off only red shirts, and at store 2 50% of the shirts dropped off were red. Okay. Okay, so for question A we can do it something like this. Maybe we can write store 1 and store 2. And here we can write the red shirts and the blue shirts, and maybe at the bottom we can write total. So in total there were 800 red shirts and 200 blue. So at store 1 she dropped off only red shirts. We don't know how much, but we know that only red shirts. So let us assume that Ella dropped off X red shirts on store 1. Okay, and for blue shirts on store 1 is 0. Now for the remaining, for store 2 all the remaining shirts were dropped off at store 2. So we know that since none of the 200 blue shirts were dropped at store 1, so all the 200 blue shirts will be dropped off at store 2. So this much is very easy to understand. But what about the red shirts? We know that in total there are 800 shirts, of which she dropped off X shirts on store 1. So the remaining shirts can be calculated as 800 minus X. So out of the total, X has been dropped off at store 1. So how much remains? So we subtract X from the total number of shirts, red shirts, which is 800. So this is the number of shirts that were dropped off at store 2. And our objective is to find out how many red shirts were dropped off at store 1. Essentially, we have to find the value of X. But here we have an interesting bit of information that is going to help us solve this problem. What's being told here is that at store 2, 50% of the shirts dropped off were red. That means this constitutes 50%, which also means that this constitutes the other 50%. So we know that 200 is the half of the total number of shirts that's being dropped off at store 2. So if 200 is 50%, 100% would definitely be 400. This also means that 800 minus X equals the other 200, which adds up to 400. So you can write 800 minus X to be equal to 200, because this is 200, which is the 50% of the total number of shirts here. So other 200 must be this, so that it adds up to 400. So it's very simple. If we solve for x, we get x equals to 600. So this was quite straightforward. So the answer to how many red shirts were dropped off at store 1 is 600 red shirts. So this is 600. So that's our answer for the first question, question A. Okay, now let's look at question B. It says, on Tuesday, she loaded 5x red shirts and 5x blue shirts. At store 1, she dropped off 40% of the red shirts and no blue shirts. Okay, again, let's create the same boxes. We have store 1 and store 2. We have red and blue. So in total there are 5x red shirts and 5x blue shirts. Now it says that at store 1 she dropped off 40% of the red shirts. So 40% can be written as 4/10 of 5x. And no blue shirts. Again, the blue shirts on store 1 is 0. So we know that the remaining is dropped off at store 2. So that means 6/10 or 60% of the remaining 5x red shirts are dropped off at store 2, and all of the blue shirts are dropped off at store 2. So the question asks us that what percentage of the shirts dropped off at store 2 were blue. So we have to find out this thing. What is the percentage? So the total here is, so total at store 2 is, we can 5, 2, 5, 1, 3. So this equals to 3x. So the total number of shirts at store 1 is 5x plus 3x is equals to 8x. And it's asking what percentage of the shirts dropped off at store 2 were blue. So it's very straightforward. So blue, the formula that we're going to use is blue shirts by at store 2 divided by total shirts at store 2 multiplied by 100, and we'll get the percentage. We know the blue is 5x and total is 8x divided by 100. 8, it's 12.5 basically. If you divide 8, if you divide 100 by 8, I think I'm right. It should be, yeah, it's 12.5. Now 12.5 into 5 should be, let me just calculate it. 5, 25, 2, 5, 12, 1, 5, 1, 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1, 62.5. So our answer is 62.5% of the shirts dropped off at store 2 were blue shirts. So this is 62.5%. So this is our answer for the second question. Now let's finally move on to question C.